perform various functions in very little amounts, in very little concentrations, in trace amounts, as we need vitamins, right? So as many as 20 minerals may be required. There are a lot more present in nature, but around 15 to 20 are required for the essential functions of the body. What are their roles in the body? What these minerals do in our body? So they have very critical, very important, crucial role in the maintenance of our general well-being, that is our overall health. And they also participate if they are deficient or excessive in their concentrations. They also participate in some disease causation as well. So what are their physiological or biochemical roles in the body? So these minerals are needed to facilitate, to catalyze the chemical reactions. As we know that the enzymes usually need some cofactors for their activity. And apart from that, there are some enzymes which are dependent on certain specialized type of minerals, such as zinc containing enzymes, copper containing enzymes, heme proteins. So these are required for the various chemical reactions. They are also needed to enhance your immunity. Zinc, selenium, some ingredients of the glutathione. They are required for the development of a better immune system. They participate in maintenance of the fluid balance. We know that sodium is present there, chloride is present there, which is an important regulator of the homeostasis. Then they transport, they carry some nutrients along with them to the cells. They perform various functions of these type. They have skeletal muscle to contract. How? Because these are the minerals, these are the ions which actually facilitate the generation of action potential across the nerve and muscle membranes. And as a result of this action potential generation, muscle either contracts or relax. These minerals also responsible for the proper generation and propagation of the heartbeat from the conducting system of the heart, as a result of the same action potential mechanism. So these are the few very important roles of the mineral in our body. We have minerals located either outside the cell, within the extracellular fluid compartment, or within the intracellular compartment as well. So we know that their location, the chief minerals, the major minerals which are present intracellularly are mainly the potassiums and the magnesiums and other proteins which are present in intracellular fluids. And in extracellular fluid, we have abundance of sodium. As you can see here, that within the cell, potassium is more, while sodium concentration is very little. While outside the cell, sodium concentration is high, while potassium is not there or present there in very little amounts. So these are the locations of the chief minerals of the body, which and these two minerals are very important. They have very important role in blood pressure regulation and regulation of the fluid and electrolytes across the cell membrane. Now they are part of the antioxidant system, the energy production pathways across the electron transport chain, muscle contraction, nerve impulse generation. How these minerals facilitate all these actions? Because they are present there as a cofactor. So for these processes, for antioxidation, we need enzymes. As you know that, what enzymes do we need? We need glutathiones for that, and glutathiones also need some minerals for their activity, such as selenium is needed by the glutathiones. Then the energy production system of electron transport chain, they also contains enzyme, ATP synthase complexes. These enzymes also need some cofactors. So this cofactor is usually a mineral. This can be of a different type. Sometimes it can be a calcium, sometimes it can be a magnesium, zinc, copper, etc., etc. But this is the role of the mineral as a cofactor in enzyme activities, and through these enzymatic processes we perform all these important functions in the body. Now, what type of minerals we have in our body, and what are the macro minerals or the major minerals which are very essential. So if you look at the graph, these are the names of the minerals which we need in that much concentration in the body. So from here you can have an idea, okay, how important these are. And if you can name them, these are the calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, sodium, chloride, and magnesium. They are needed in much bigger quantities in the blood so that they can perform their normal function, while the iron, zinc, copper, iodide, they are the micro minerals. They are needed by the cells in very little amounts. So we will focus on these macro minerals in relation to the cardiovascular disease and in relation to the hypertension. And out of these major minerals, we will focus on calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, chloride, and magnesium, because they have important role in there. So first of all, calcium is the most abundant mineral in the body, and the bank for the calcium in our body is our bones. Mostly around 98% of the calcium of our body is present in the bones, and it is a divalent cation. Okay, so it is there. So what is the role of calcium in the body? We all know that the calcium is needed for the health, or for the development, or for the maintenance of the structures of our bones, cartilages, teeth. And apart from that, it is also required for the nerve impulse generation, contraction of the skeletal muscles, coagulation of the blood. So these are the important functions of the body. So from where we get this calcium? Obviously, we need it in the diet, and milk and the dairy products are the mainstay, the major source of the calcium that we can get to perform these important functions within the body. What happens if this calcium is low in the blood? So as a force effect, deficiency of calcium reflects in the abnormal health of the bone, because your bones become weak and diseased, and they become fragile. So they are the bony pathologies: osteoporosis, deformed bones, tatany. These are the initial symptoms for the deficiency of the calcium. Now, what happens if this calcium is overloaded, or someone consume this calcium in excess? So this excessive calcium leads to the calcification of the soft tissues. And we know that our arteries, aorta, and heart valves, these are the soft tissues which can easily get calcified by the deposition of these calcium crystals. So if you look at this in relation to the cardiovascular system or the blood pressure as such, so what happens? This we have talked about it many times, but in relation to the calcium and blood pressure, we are going to discuss it. These are the coronary arteries, or the arteries of the heart. So what happens as a result of development of some plaque there, atherosclerosis process there, these arteries get blocked, they get occluded, their lumen become narrow. So there are so many factors in the development of this atheromatous plaque, such as LDL particles, macrophages, foam cells, cholesterol itself, and some fibrin threads, platelets as well. But if you look at this, around these plaques, you can see some crystals as well. These are known as the hydroxyapatite crystals. These hydroxyapatite crystals have tendency to make their conjugates, or salts with the calcium and phosphate present there. within the lining of the blood vessels. So you can see these are the calcium and phosphorus deposits, and in the center of the plaques you can also see these are the hydroxyapatite crystals for the calciums, right? So what happens there? So if this atheromatous plaque is developed somewhere in the coronary artery, and it gets further cemented with the calcium salts, with the crystals of the calcium, it becomes a more rigid, tough structure, right? So this plaque becomes more tough, and as a result it has more tendency to become some sclerosis, some hardening of the arteries, right? So these calcium and phosphate particles just strengthen, just further precipitate the process of atheromatous plaque formation there in the blood vessel. And as a result, uh, if they are deposited in one of the coronary arteries get blocked, stiff. So you can see these calcified areas on the scans of the myocardium, as you can see over here. This is shown some these opacities shown some calcification of the coronary arteries along with the atherosclerosis there. So this is what happens when the calcium is overloaded or it becomes excessive in the blood. It start calcifying the soft tissues. Okay, now what are the functions of the calcium? It performs many important roles in the body, such as muscle contraction, nerve impulse transmission, release of neurotransmitter, because we know that in the neurons, the neurotransmitters are stored in the vesicles, and they are released from these vesicles when the calcium influx increase within the neurons, which you will study later on in your neurosciences. But to have a concept of that, they help in the release of neurotransmitter as well. They regulate hormones and enzyme. How do they regulate hormones and enzyme? As I told you, that they can play a role as a cofactor for the enzyme, and certain hormones conveys their information, sends signals through some second messenger system, and one of the important second messenger system within these cells is your calcium calmodulin complex system, which activates some hormones and other intracellular proteins, right? So this is how calcium helps all these mechanisms within the body. Importantly, it has an important role in the vasodilatation, that is increased diameter of blood vessel, and vasoconstriction as well. And this vasoconstriction actually leads to blood pressure development, right? So as a result of vasodilatation, peripheral resistance decreases and blood flow becomes smoother, right? But when there is vasoconstriction, the blood pressure is increased due to the rigidity or due to the hardening of the blood vessels. That is why the most of the some of the antihypertensive drugs are also vasodilators. What do they do? They block the calcium channel. They are known as calcium channel blockers. So when the calcium channels are blocked, blood vessels become dilate. So in this way, we can treat the blood pressure. Okay. Then it has a role in blood clotting. When we have discussed blood coagulation in blood module, we also discussed there that the formation of clot is supported by some fibrin threads, and along with the fibrin threads, calcium has a tendency to chelate some ions over there and make this plug more stronger. So these are the functions of calcium within the body and in relation to the cardiovascular system. Then the second important mineral of the body is the phosphorus, and it is the second most abundant mineral. Most of the metabolism is phosphorus is similar to the metabolism of calcium, and the functions of the phosphorus are also to maintain the growth and development of the bones and teeth. They also perform their functions of the maintenance of the bony tissues in the body. So it is 85% in bony tissues. Rest of the phosphorus is present in the muscle and the cell membrane, absorbed from the small intestine. Vitamin D enhances its ability, since vitamin D has a role in the absorption of calcium and phosphates and the regulation of phosphorus also from the intestine and from the renal tubules. We will study that phenomena, that mechanism in the locomotor module as well. So phytates are, or the phytic acids are some chemical compounds which are present naturally in the food groups, in some grains, legumes and beans. So these phytic acids which are present there in these grains and legumes and beans, they are believed to decrease the absorption of certain important minerals such as iron, phosphorus, magnesium. So they are affected by the increased presence of phytic acid or the phytates present in the diet, right? So if the phytate content of the diet is high, absorption of the minerals will be reduced. Then phosphorus is present in all type of beans, nuts, milk, oatmeal. It is there, and its basic function is the formation of bones, teeth, and body fluid, and it is required for the metabolism. What is the role of phosphorus in metabolism? Why the phosphorus is required for the metabolism? Just recall your very famous cellular currency. What? ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That adenosine triphosphate is the energy reservoir, is the energy molecule for your cell. So these ATPs are dependent on the levels of phosphorus or inorganic phosphates present there. So they do take part in metabolism and cellular respiration, right? Deficiency symptoms are as that of the calcium, because it is also involved in the maintenance of bony health and bony deformities, right? So calcium and phosphorus usually represents the same sort of deficiency symptoms. It is important to keep your calcium and phosphorus in balance. There should be a balance in between the levels of calcium and phosphorus, and that is why it has been designed to be regulated by the parathyroid hormone, vitamin D across the GI and the renal tubules, which we will discuss in your locomotor section as well, right? Then sodium, which is the most abundant extracellular mineral, and it is said to be a chief electrolyte of the extracellular fluid, and it regulates blood volume. How it regulates blood volume? Because the water metabolism or the transport of water is associated with the metabolism or the movement of sodium all across the cell membrane. So that is how it maintains the fluid volume or the fluid content intracellularly and extracellularly. So this sodium is also involved in nerve impulse transmission, and subsequently the contraction and relaxation of the skeletal muscle. Importantly, from where we get this sodium? It we consume it, we take it in our diet, and the table salt accounts for 90% of our sodium. So the 90% of our sodium that we consume is coming from the table salt, and because in table salt is sodium chloride, and in that part sodium, in this way we take more sodium in our diet. So is it good to have that much sodium? Is it part of our problem? And what is the significance of having high sodium or low sodium in our diet? So it can become problematic. I'm talking about the table salt thing, okay? So it can become problematic. How? We will see in the subsequent slides. Now, what are the functions of this sodium? As we have discussed, that muscle activity and maintenance of the homeostasis and the pH. are the major functions of sodium: maintenance of the fluid balance in the body compartments. Its normal levels are 135 to 145 milliequivalents per liter. So that means in the plasma, in the normal blood, the sodium levels should be in between a range of 135 to 145 milliequivalents per liter. More than 95% absorbed in small intestine, about 5% excreted in feces, and blood levels of the sodium are maintained by the kidneys. How? We consume in our diet, we take it in our diet, absorbed through the intestine, some of it is excreted through the feces, and rest of the sodium, which is needed for the maintenance of homeostasis, is regulated or maintained by the kidneys. Around 70% of the sodium is reabsorbed by the proximal tubules, by the kidneys. So that is how we preserve, we conserve sodium in our body. It also conserves water along with it. If there is more sodium in the ECF, so that means, as we know that sodium and water metabolism, or the water thing, walk along, they get combined across the body compartments. So if the sodium is there, so there will be more water. We can have hypertonic blood or the hypertonic saliva, in which what happens, the osmolarity is increased, which triggers the thirst mechanism. So what happens when there is, and you must have noticed, जब आप ज़्यादा salty foods खाते हैं तो आपको ज़्यादा प्यास लगती है. So that is because of this hypertonicity. It aggravates the thirst center in the hypothalamus and urge you to drink more water. किसी और सेक्शन में इसको डिस्कस करेंगे, but just to know, the thirst mechanism and water conservation is based on the levels of sodium in the blood. It is also lost in the sweat through perspiration. So we consume sodium in the diet as a table salt in natural foods, and we lose it in the perspiration or the sweat. What are the food sources of sodium? So these are some facts and figures about the sodium use. About 70% of the sodium is from the processed foods. Around 70% हमें processed foods से मिलता है. Processed foods क्या हैं? Canned, processed meats, frozen, pre-packaged, ready-made foods which are present in the stores. They contain around 70% of the sodium. 20% comes from natural food sources. That is the natural food, the fruits, the vegetables, and other meats that we consume. We get 12% from there. 5% added when we are cooking food. We add some salt over there. So from there we get 5% of the sodium, and about 6% added on the table. And this is apart from the 5% that we added during the cooking. So that means this 70, we can eliminate this 70%. We can easily remove that 70%, and we can very easily remove that 6%, because these are the two types of addition of sodium or the salt which leads to the development of hypertension. So rest of the things which are coming from the natural sources, from the natural fruits and vegetables, that is fine, or the some pinches of salt that you add during cooking for your taste, that is fine. That contributes around only 17%. So, but you can eliminate this 76 or 77% from your diet. Okay. What about the chloride? Acha. As sodium metabolism takes along with the water metabolism, similarly, sodium and chloride are dealt together in the body, and it is also a major electrolyte, but this is anion and this is bound to sodium, and it is present in the form of sodium chloride in the foods, and some in the body this is dissociated in the form of sodium separately and chloride separately. Okay, absorbed through a small intestine, excreted in the urine, and this chloride content of the body, this chloride should not be confused with the chlorine. Chlorine is what? Chlorine is something which is a very powerful disinfectant. So if somebody ingest this chlorine or inhale this chlorine, it is poisonous. It can lead to very severe, very serious consequences, right? So chloride is there along with the sodium within the food. In the body, it gets dissociated, present as a sodium ion and a chloride ion. What are the metabolic functions of the chloride? Again, maintenance of fluid balance, assist in removal of carbon dioxide from the body. How? What is the relation of carbon dioxide from the body? What is the relation between chloride and removal of carbon dioxide? If you recall your chloride shift, we have studied in respiratory module. What was happening there? Bicarbonate was being taken in by the alveoli and chloride in shifting. So this is the important mechanism of chloride, important role of chloride over there. And this way carbon dioxide is eliminated by the body. Maintain normal pH range of blood. Then again, how? The same process, the chloride shift, right? Carbonic anhydrase thing. Okay. It is part of HCl, which is a very strong acid present in our stomach. So these are the important metabolic functions of chloride in our body. Its toxicity is very rare. One can consume around 3.6 grams of chloride every day, and but its excess can can take place with the serious dehydration, right? Because in dehydration, what happens? Water content is reduced, so chloride content can become higher. Deficiency is also rare, but in cases of diarrhea and vomiting, there can be low levels of chloride observed there. Potassium, an important mineral, which is abundant where in the intracellular fluid, and there should be a balance. There should be a balance in between the potassium and the sodium to to regulate your blood pressure. And again, the kidneys plays a crucial role in conservation of the potassium across the renal tubules. Its functions are nerve impulse generation, sodium potassium polarization, depolarization, hyperpolarization. They are mediated by the help of sodium and potassium things. Then heartbeat generation, rhythms of the heart. If there is some impairment in the levels of potassium, there will be arrhythmias. Arrhythmias, that these which are the abnormal heartbeats. It regulates blood pressure. How? We will see in a while. Act as a buffer in blood, and it also preserves calcium and phosphate in the bone. It is not important to remember, but the role of potassium in heartbeat generation and blood pressure regulation is important. We will see in a while. Okay. It is also lost in the perspiration in the sweat, as the case with the sodium. What are the good source? Potatoes. Potatoes are the best source of the potassium. Nothing can beat potatoes for the supplementation of the potassium in any form, roasted, baked, mashed. All the types of potatoes are very good source of potassium. Rest of the beans, veggies, tomatoes, these are the other sources, and it is also present in some fishes, salmon, tuna. These are potassium rich fishes, while nuts are also a very good source of potassium. Their normal levels are 3.5 to 5 milliequivalents per liter. What happens if there is deficiency? Hypokalemia. Hypokalemia means low levels of potassium. And this hypokalemia, that is low potassium, is having a high risk of development of blood pressure, that is hypertension. Okay. How these low levels are developed? As a result of diarrhea and vomiting, as a result of diarrhea and vomiting, potassium levels drop. It leads to muscle weakness and cramps, glucose intolerance, and irregular heartbeat. Why glucose intolerance? What is the relationship of glucose intolerance with the potassium? Because potassium is needed for the and to your glucose within the cells. So if potassium is not there, glucose will remain outside the cell. So there will be hyperglycemia and glucose intolerance. What happens with the toxicity or hyperkalemia? Again, the irregular heartbeat, because potassium is required for the development or and the generation of heartbeats, heart damage due to this arrhythmias. So these are the things which need to be taken care of, that the patient with the renal failure or taking some medication for heart disease or taking diuretics, because what diuretics do, diuretics will excrete urine in large amounts. So along with urine, people may lose potassium as well, right? So these things should be kept in mind in relation to the high or low levels of potassium in that. Magnesium is present in bones mainly and then in the muscles, and it has very important role uh, in the development of arrhythmias or irregular heartbeat, and it is said to be a cardiac friendly mineral, right? It is needed for the good health of the myocardium. Now, what happens when these minerals are becomes imbalanced in between in the blood? So if their levels are not regulated well. So as I explained you that if calcium and phosphorus are not balanced, it leads to calcification, right? Calcification means hardening of the arteries, stiffening of the arteries. And what happens as a result of hardening of the arteries? What happens? Because these normally hypertension is the pressure which is exerted on the arterial wall. This is normal flow of blood. This is hypertension, much increased pressure exerted on the arterial. So as a result of this increased pressure, what happens there actually? There is damage. There is a damage to the arterial wall. As you can see, it start damaging the endothelial lining. And as a result of this damage, the blood flow is impaired, becomes more turbulent, causing more damage, and then develop some atheromatous plaques over there, which leads to obstruction there. And that is why it is said that hypertension is killer for the arteries or the other systems of the body. Now some facts about the blood pressure. Its normal range is 120 systolic and 80 mmHg diastolic. So the ideal blood pressure is 120 by 80 millimeters of mercury. One should control blood pressure. How? If the sodium levels are maintained and the amount of sodium in the diet is cut off, it should be less than 1500 milligrams per liter. Why? Because more sodium, more water retention. As a result of more water retention, there will be more development of blood pressure and more increased workload on the myocardium, right? So to cut down sodium from the diet is a key to maintain your blood pressure. Then take medication as prescribed, and some patients will recover by one single medication. Some may require more combination of medications. These are some estimates of research data. It is estimated that 25% of population has increased blood pressure, and at the age of 65, 60%, no, normally 25%, and at the age of 65, around 60% of people have blood pressure. And it is estimated that in next 10 to 15 years, about 90% people will have hypertension. So it is very important to regulate and control your blood pressure through making lifestyle modifications by cutting down these minerals and by increasing the minerals which are friendly for the blood pressure and cutting down those minerals which are harmful for your cardiovascular health. Risk factors are age, race, family history, excessive weight if the BMI is more than 25, physical inactivity, tobacco use, increased sodium intake, low potassium intake, alcohol consumption. They all are the factors which are risk factors which take part in blood pressure development. How to control your blood pressure? In early stages, consume a diet which is rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and low-fat dairy products, because through these diets you will get more potassium and less sodium. And in later stages, may need to limit protein, because proteins, especially the red meat, also contain cholesterol within it, which can increase your blood pressure. Lose weight. If you are overweight, do some exercise. So these are the guidelines which are there to control your blood pressure, and avoid the diets which have high sodium levels. कौन कौन सी डाइट्स हैं जिनमें ज़्यादा सोडियम है? टोमेटो जूस, कैन वेजिटेबल्स, कैन सूप्स, इन सब में सोडियम ज़्यादा है. लेकिन इससे ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट जो हम रोज़ाना यूज़ करते हैं वो क्या है? प्रोसेस्ड मीट्स, फ्रोजन मीट्स, tomato sauce, right? Potato chips, salted popcorns, flavored crackers, ketchup, pickles, and seasoned rice and noodles. So these are the very dangerous foods that we consume in our on our daily basis, and they are contributing towards the development of high blood pressure because they are rich in their sodium content.